We've got a solid show of Christmas stuff, but we haven't forgotten wood products or woods or anything like that.
No doubt. Well, we always say trees are the answer, and we're going to be talking a lot about trees and some of the good products we get from them. I'm really excited to have everybody with us today. You can interact with us via the chat bot on Zoom, and we'll get back to you real quick with any answers to your questions. But today's lineup, Renee, really excited. So we've got a new one, and we got two returning guests. So I'm all excited about all three guests. But we're going to start off today's show with Doug McLaren, and so this is becoming like an annual tradition for us. So third year in a row, I think Doug has been with us for our Christmas special, and he's going to be talking about some of the wood products that we get and Christmas and kind of that interaction there a little bit. And always look forward to hearing from Doug. And we'll also have Martha Yount, who's been on here numerous times, and she's going to be talking about roasting chestnuts, which you hear it in the songs all the time. So Martha's going to be telling us about it and how we can go about that. And then we have Faye Koosman, who is the Woodford County Horde agent, and she's going to be doing some wreath making. So really exciting show. Lots of opportunities for you to get some questions answered about some of these cool topics. So make sure you use the chat function and we'll respond. But thank you all for being with us today from a soggy Lexington, Kentucky.
Definitely. But look, let's go ahead and get started. So Doug, if you want to turn your camera on. Hey, thanks for joining us for another Christmas special.
I know.
Christmas without you.
I know. We got to keep it going, Doug.
I appreciate it very much. You want me to just jump into this?
Yep, jump in.
Great. I'm looking forward to it.
Let me try to share my screen here. I just realized this morning when I got here that Faye and Martha are going to be coming right behind me. I've worked with these two ladies a lot and recently also, and it's a great pleasure to be in the same room with them. So thank you. So we're going to talk about wooden products and Christmas. Basically, what we're talking about is Christmas Day here. What are the things that, as all the hectic commotion is going on during Christmas, how can we, the forestry department, say, we have some responsibility as to what's going on there too. So we're going to jump right in here with wooden products. I think it'd be extremely difficult to start Christmas Day off without having the traditional Christmas tree. It's something that's probably focal in all the Christian homes. Having some type of a Christmas tree. And so for that reason, I wanted to start off with it. I think we all recognize a lot of the information about the Christmas tree, all the religious connotation. A lot of it is not religious. But I did want to make mention, since we are in a forestry program, a little bit about the Christmas tree. And that is, before we even decorate the Christmas tree, and before we even go out to the store to buy a Christmas tree, even before those trees are hauled into those different vendors that sell them, even before trees are delivered to these different locations throughout the United States, we have to remember the fact that Christmas trees are a product. They are a agricultural product. They don't just spring up at these vending sites automatically. These things are 7 years old. Usually they can make a marketable product out of 7 years, but they literally go out there and plant these trees in rows. And hopefully within about 7 years, they can start selling them. Recognize also that Christmas trees do not come in this shape. During that 7 years of time, there's a lot of pruning that goes on where they look for individual limbs that need to be snipped back, and also curing the top there, making sure it always has a spike on the top. Not only is there shearing, but there's also shaping involved. The one on the bottom is using a knife. The one on the top is using a set of blades. But it takes a lot to get those trees in the form and shape that we recognize them. They come in all sizes too. There's small ones for tabletops, and there's large ones for downtown New York City. But there are a lot of things about Christmas trees. How many species are there throughout the United States? We recognize about 35 species that are being used for Christmas trees. And a lot of it has to do with geographic location. where the trees are being, or where they're needed. Firs, pines, spruces, cypress, cedar are usually the ones that we think about. Aroma has a lot to do with why some trees are picked. The biggest thing is simply, will an ornament hang on it? And for that reason, that's why a lot of trees are pruned, shaped, and chosen for that particular thing, in color also. So the tree itself is a very important aspect of the holiday season that we have. Garland, what they do is they simply take trees that are unsuitable for making into Christmas trees, and they make garland out of it, long lengths of garland. You can buy, of course, artificial, but we certainly think that the natural garland is the best thing to use, and it comes in all lengths. So we have that, and then let's talk a little bit about wreaths. I know that Faye is going to be coming on here momentarily talking about wreaths, but it is an element of Christmas morning and the Christmas season. It is an old religious actually from years gone by, but they made the wreaths. One of the reasons we use green in all of our festive holidays is because this is the darkest time of the year, and we all recognize that. And so greenery, we're talking about pagan times. They brought greenery into their homes simply to remind them of what was to come. And one of the things that made time here, and that was making of wreaths. And one of the things is the circle itself. It's easy to make, and Faye will show you how to do that momentarily. But basically, it's eternal, and that is, it keeps going in a circle. So the symbolism of green and life, and the circle meaning eternity. I wanted to show you some of these other wreaths. Some of them are very picturesque. But this last one I wanted to show you was, it's not made out of the leaves or the greenery of conifers. It's actually made out of the seed pods of the pine trees themselves, the cones. And you can see there that they have wrapped these things together. So wreaths is a very important thing, and again, a product from the woods. Mistletoe, there's a great deal of mythology about mistletoe. It came from pagan holidays. We know that the berries, anything that's white, usually any white berry, you should not eat because it's poison. But from mythology, it seems that someone was shot with an arrow made from mistletoe. It killed this person, but what happened was the tears that were shed by the woman that from this person that was killed brought them back to life. And so the white berries are the tears, and the mistletoe, the whole idea of bringing life back. That's kind of why we end up having it in our homes over our arches, the mistletoe concept. One thing I wanted to show you about the mistletoe, and that is, where do we get it? And we actually get it from trees. It's a parasite of mostly oak trees in this part of the world. And usually they grow high on ridges. It's the ridge tops where you'll find mistletoe growing, but you can find it here in Kentucky. Just go to your highest ridge lines, and that's where you're going to probably find mistletoe growing. Another important aspect of that Christmas morning are all of the gifts that are wrapped up underneath the tree, and they come in a variety of packaging materials. The paper can be thin, the paper can be brown, the paper can be colorful, it can be thick, it can be thin, but there's a variety of types of papers that we utilize for packaging. And you can see the bottom right hand corner there, we have bags that have tissue in it. That seems to be a new versatile type of packaging that we have come into vogue over the past few years. But we want to take a look at this picture, and there's one thing that's more or less uniform throughout all of these presents, and that is that cardboard box underneath. It's a craft box, they call it. I will tell you that statistics says that in 2020, just 2 years ago, 80% of the products that are sold in the United States, 80% of all products come in some type of a cardboard box. And in 2020, there was approximately 120 billion boxes that were made. They were first found in France in the late 1700s. And they were first used here in America on a routine basis by Kellogg's. That's what they created to put the cornflakes in. And the same company also made a milk container. So that was the first commercial uses of cardboard. The next thing is greeting cards that we want to talk about. During the festive holiday, you get these in the mail. Not as many as what we used to. A lot of it due to expense, a lot of it due to electronics. I can remember when I was growing up, which was a long time ago, we sent these things and the postage was 3 cents, 3 cents. So you know how old I am. But greeting cards, they are extremely old when you talk about the history of them. The Egyptians actually used them on papyrus. We found greeting cards from Egypt. And the 15th century in Europe is when they first started making the traditional movement as we see them now as a greeting card. So greeting cards, we see them, and they're another wooden product or product from woods. Here's a collection of wooden toys, especially younger kids enjoy these types of toys made of wood. They're a lot more durable, and for some reason, especially in the forestry community, a wood toy has a much better feel to it than plastic. So there's a lot of wooden toys that are passed around during when those packages are being opened. For the older older people receiving gifts, here's a wide variety of gifts that are made out of wood also. Down there at the bookcase down in the lower and left-hand corner, trays there in the middle, and actually a piece of furniture in the right-hand side. So there's a lot of gifts. Take a look at the ones that you are getting. I will tell you this also, that gift giving, you may not recognize that there's 2,500 products that are made or been identified as made from trees. Cosmetics, some of the cosmetic chemicals actually are redeemed from trees. So recognize that fact. Wooden tree ornaments, a lot of them are glass. I know the older ones are glass. And I know that there's been a traditional move towards this type of an ornament on our trees, and that is these wooden tree ornaments. A lot of people like to get ornaments from places they've visited, or people send them ornaments, but wooden ornaments is taking a new shot for our Christmas trees. And holly, we can't go very far without talking about holly. There's a lot of religious connotation here, and that is that the holly has thorns. That was remembering the crown of thorns. And then also the red berries, we think of it as the blood. So when you get into the religious aspect, the thorns and the blood. But usually we see, again, greenery, and this time of year, we're trying to remember that there will be more light in the days to come. The nutcracker. Now, as soon as you see this picture, all it brings to mind, at least for me, is the Nutcracker Suite. And they have, very elaborate nutcrackers that are portrayed, I guess we might say. And all of these that we see here on the screen are nutcrackers. And if you look up in the top left-hand corner, he is doing exactly what it's supposed to, and that is to crack nuts. Recognize the fact that all of these nuts that we are using for our holiday, and then Martha's going to actually be talking about one of these. These all come from trees. So here you are putting nuts in your salads. People are just eating nuts at random, and your pies, salads, everything that use nuts. All of those nuts are coming from a tree of some sort. I thought it would be nice to learn a little bit about cork. Cork is a tree product. I recognize that it's usually found in an adult drink is where you'll find cork. But here is a interesting wreath. Faye, take a look at that one. In case you have a lot of those corks laying around, you might be able to make one of those this morning. And then also flooring uses cork, and then also this stylized picture of this shoe. It also cork is a very soundproof thing. A little bit about cork, and that is it's grown from an oak tree. Quercus suber, S-U-B-E-R, and it's only found in Southern Europe and Northern Africa. What's interesting is this tree, after it's about 25 years of age, they can actually, for the next 8 to 14 years, strip the bark off of this tree and make cork out of it. Stripping the bark off for a year does not kill the tree. And so for that reason, these trees are sustainable. So it takes 25 years to grow the tree, and then they can debark it for 8 to 14 years. I thought it was a very interesting thing. And then after all the gifts have been passed out and everybody has opened all those, what do? We turn to food. And pancakes, I think these were wonderful. Oh, look at that, nuts on the pancakes. I thought these were very interesting pictures, but what I'm looking for is we usually dump syrup on those pancakes. And I hope you all recognize the fact that maple syrup actually comes from trees, maple trees. So all the way through to the mid-morning brunch, I guess it would be, we see that there's a great influx of tree products. We're going back to the first picture, but what I want to do is I want to strip some of the things out of this picture and talk about another wooden product. I didn't even mention the floor, which is made out of wood, but what I would like to do is to get rid of the garland, and I would like to get rid of the tree. And what do we end up with? A fireplace. And what do we put into fireplace? Firewood. And so a lot of homes during the Christmas season like to at least have a fire during that particular time of the year. And so firewood is a major component of products that come from our forests and woodlands. Here in the state of Kentucky, a lot of people do burn, but when you get into the Northeast, once you get to Pennsylvania north, firewood stacks up there are absolutely amazing how large they are and all consuming. And so it is a heating element for a lot of people up north. The ones up in the right-hand corner that we have there are prepackaged. That means you go to a store, and I've seen a lot of stores handling these now, and you can pick them up in those bundles and bring them home if you want to just have a few fires during the year. So move to the last one, which is where we all started. That's my rendition of wooden products for Christmas and Christmas. Our influence. There's probably a lot of other ones that you can think of. I just wanted to hit some of the main ones, but recognize the fact, take a little bit of time Christmas morning. I don't think you want to hold the kids back, but take a look around and see all the things that actually are products of our forest here in the state of Kentucky, as well as throughout the United States and the world. So with that, I'm going to stop sharing. I think I've stopped.
Yeah, you have.
And
well, Doug,
I'm
going to tell you, this is one reason why I have you do this, because even though I knew a lot of those products, half of them I'm like, I didn't even think about that.
Yeah.
Because you're showing that picture again, and I was like, where is he gonna go? And I was like, fireplace. Yeah. But that's why I ask you to do these, because you always bring a great perspective to something we already know, but make it to the front of our mind.
A little more in depth. Yeah. And I'm glad we're doing it today and not Christmas Day, because I don't think there'd be a lot of attention given.
Right. Hey, so trees are the answer, Doug, right?
Right.
Christmas, right?
Yeah, we don't recognize, and that's why I was very happy to put this together, and that is the influence of the forest.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
definitely. Well, thank you, Doug, and I'm sure we'll have you on again next year.
Yeah, all right. Go ahead and put it on your calendars.
Exactly.
Happy holidays, everybody.
Thank you, Doug. Take care.
All right. That was just an interesting presentation.
Very interesting. Love
Yeah.
having Doug on
And,
there.
now we're actually going to show you how to make those wreaths.
Yeah, we're gonna get to see. So we're transporting you to Woodford County, Kentucky right now, and Faye Koosman's the horticulture agent, is going to be doing a wreath making demonstration for us. So
Faye, you can turn your camera on and let's get started with your presentation. Hi, thank you for joining us today.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here, and I already learned a lot from Doug's presentation. I always enjoy hearing from Doug and working with Doug. So thanks for that. I'll be having a fire soon as we get this cold weather that's spring. So
Right. All right. So let's see how you make these wreaths.
So I don't have the fancy cork wreath today to make for you, but I'm going to start out talking about the materials you'll need to make a wreath. So I'm just using a simple wire frame, which you can get online. You can get at your local, any kind of box stores or local craft stores. And this is a 14-inch frame. So I have that. And then I have pruners for cutting your pieces of greenery to length. And we'll talk about what length you want. And then I have some wire here to attach the greenery to the wreath frame. Of course, my wire cutters, and then I have a lot of other embellishments over here that could be added into the wreath. Some pine cones, ribbons, and things like that. So I'm going to go through what types of greenery I have here today to make the wreath with. We have our Eastern red cedar. I have some boxwood and some white pine. I have spruce. This is Norway spruce. You can use blue spruce. Any type of spruce works really great. I have some southern magnolia. Holly, which I always love with the red berries. Holly makes a great addition to the wreath. We have some hemlock here. And finally, I have yew or taxus. But you know, any type of greenery, I have collected this mostly from my yard, but I have a lot of master gardeners and they have helped me. We do a wreath class every year, and we collect a lot of greenery for that. So we make 50+ wreaths. And so we're going to people's farms with their permission, of course. One year they accidentally cut lights off of one of them. So we definitely needed permission to go to these places and cut the greenery, whether it's a large farm or just a small backyard. We get a lot of the really pretty southern magnolia and hollies and things like that in people's landscape each year. So I have a nice arrangement of greenery here, and we're going to go ahead and get started with the size to cut. So normally you want to have about 8 to 9 inches in length for your pieces that you are going to use. And a good way to measure that is if you want to put it to your elbow and wrist. From your elbow to your wrist is about the length that you want. So you can start cutting them and doing that, but then you kind of get a feel as you go for how long those need to be. So what I do is basically I'm just making almost like a bouquet with these. So I start layering in all of the different types of greenery. I'm going to get some holly here, some pine and boxwood and the Eastern red cedar, and some of my hemlock, and some of the taxus. And I start to just make a really nice little bundle. And you do want it to be pretty large, depending on how big and full you want your wreath to be. If you do cut longer pieces, you're going to have more of a floppy wreath, and it's harder to keep it, to hold it on. So that's why I like to keep it at that shorter length. But I do like to have a nice full wreath. So I like to layer in a lot of my greenery. And there's a couple ways that you can, with our big wreath workshops, we pre-cut a lot of this wire so that we go ahead and you can tie your bundles. It usually takes about 8 to 10 bundles for a 14-inch wreath frame. Now, of course, you know, you can use all types of frames. As I mentioned, I have this wire frame. But you can, I've seen people make the frame out of cardboard, even just a simple cutout of cardboard, and you can attach the bundles onto that. Grapevine, you can find all different types of the backing for that. But as you can see here, I have attached the wire and went ahead and tie that around this bundle, or you can just simply put it on there and wrap your wire around. So people do it different ways. They either tie the bundle or not. And then we just start wrapping the wire around it to secure it on. So then I'm going to make another bundle. The really important thing here that you want to remember is that you always want to go, as you're making your bundles, you want to go the same direction with those bundles. So basically what you're doing with the next bundle is you're covering up the stem from that first one you put on. So hopefully you all can see that. So I'm going to be covering up this next stem with the bundle I'm making here. Get some of this on. And when you cut the greenery that you're going to use, an important thing to do is to either put the cut stems in water, so just like a 5-gallon bucket of water or whatever you have to soak those in, or just throwing the greenery into a tub and fully immersed in the water. But just trying to keep as much moisture in that greenery as you possibly can before you use it will keep it fresh longer. So if you're going to be using this wreath and hanging it on your door outside, you get the natural moisture in the air and so you don't really have to worry about it. It'll last no problem through Christmas. But if you are going to put this inside, you will want to probably bring it out and keep it misted, or they have these anti-transparents like a wilt proof, and you can actually spray that on the greenery and it will hold in that moisture and keep it fresh for longer. So now what I'm going to do, I have my next little bundle that I made here, and I'm just going to place that right kind of overlapping that first set of stems. And then I'm just going to do the same process of wrapping the wire around here. Just like that. And then we're going to do another bundle here, just so you get another idea of kind of how it looks with a few more on there. This is always such a fun thing to do, using whatever you have in your front yard. There's so many great things to use. There's even viburnum, just so many options for greenery to use in a wreath. So then I have my bundle here, and I'm going to place that right on top of the last one there, and take my wire and wrap it around. And it really helps with our classes. As I mentioned, we do pre-cut the wire so that each time you're kind of running it through here and tying it on. But if you can keep it just on this wire wrapping here, it's really easy, because then you're just going around a few times to really secure it on there and hold that wreath. So I'm going to go ahead and do my final bundle here. Use my hemlock, a pretty holly with the berry, southern magnolia. And some people will make a wreath with all just one type of greenery. So you'll see, a boxwood wreath or a spruce wreath. Some people will put a lot of the southern magnolia on there, and they're all just so unique and different and beautiful in their own way. And then of course, we do swag classes as well. And that's just basically using longer pieces to basically make the same thing I'm doing in a bundle, and then, tying your pretty ribbon on there and just hanging it like that. So that's also another option. That's super easy if you're not going to do a wreath and would take less greenery. So as I mentioned, I think I'm 4 bundles in, and I would have to have probably about 4 or 5 more of these to fill the whole wreath. And let's see. I'll put this final bundle on here. As you can see, we're getting close to halfway through the wreath here. I'm going to put that bundle on. This is going to be a really nice full wreath for us when we're through at the end. Now, I don't have time to do the whole thing today, but I will show you, once I have this wrap, at the very end, you're basically just gonna cut a longer length of this wire off here. And then just make sure that you're kind of wrapping it through the little wire here and securing it on really nice and tight. And then you get your another piece of wire and kind of find where you want to hang that. But then you can take a pine cone and you can just tie on, kind of wrap some wire around the bottom of that. Ideally, you have gloves to wear with this, so you're not getting all sticky. Now my hands are very sticky. So gloves are another important thing to use with this. But then you can, put in your kind of wire in. I'm not doing a good showing this right now because I don't have enough hands, but you can easily just wire in a pine cone. And then, use any of these other embellishments. You can put nice little wire on the same of these ornaments here. You can put wire at the end of those and add those in. And then I like to, with my bow, usually find kind of like a little gap somewhere where I've left a hole in the wreath and kind of just add that ribbon in there at the end. But when you get to your last bundle, as I'm coming around the wreath and I get to where I started, to get that last bundle, you're really just going to pull up that first one you made and tuck that last bundle underneath it. And then you're hiding the stem from that last bundle and you have your finished wreath. So that is it for my presentation on how to.
That was really interesting. Thank you.
Great, you are welcome.
Yes.
Are there any questions?
So basically, it sounds like you can make a wreath out of any kind of greenery whatsoever.
You really can, yes. It's so simple. As you can see, there's many different types here, but anything you have in your yard, that are evergreens or even some that just look pretty, that kind of hold their color through the winter, or this time of year would work great.
And probably need to check all those to make sure there's no pests on them. I thought of Ellen when she said hemlock. I was like, oh no.
No indulgent on there, please.
Right.
That is something you would want to check for sure.
Don't want to bring that in your house. So and it was interesting. So you said that there's a spray that you can actually keep them, that keeps them moist.
Yes, exactly. Yes, it's an anti-transparent spray or transperspirant spray. I think a lot of it, there's different brands, but there's like a wilt proof. And basically, yes, so you would just take your wreath outside and just spray down all of the greenery. And that'll really hold in that moisture to make it last longer, especially if you're going to be putting it inside.
But if you just wanted to spray it with water and keep them inside, could you do that as well?
Yes, yep. And I would just recommend at that point, especially when you first cut it, soaking the ends of those branches in the water, immersing the whole thing in water until you're ready to put it on the wreath. But then once you have it inside and it's a finished product, maybe at least once or twice a week going outside and just misting it down so that you keep it moist. And it'll last longer for you that way.
Faye, you made it look so easy. I mean, it really did. I'm like, wow, I always wondered how people made those.
It is pretty easy. I mean, I've had a lot of practice, but as you go and do it, making those nice big bundles, it's not too hard. So it's fun.
That's very cool. Faye, I wanted to circle back real quick. You had mentioned something at the beginning that you offer these classes at your office, right?
Yes, that is correct. And a lot of extension offices offer wreath making classes.
Exactly. And that's what I want to remind all our viewers. Check in with your local county extension offices. They always have amazing programs and great educational opportunities for you. Get to know your local county agents and staff there. They're a great resource and they're part of your local community. So, Faye, thank you for being such a great representative of our county agents out there and our county extension offices and sharing some really cool tips there on building a wreath.
Yes, thank you so much for inviting me today. I appreciated it.
Thank you. Take care.
Very cool. Very cool. Thank you. Thank you.
All right. So, we've heard roasting chestnuts by a fire.
I've been hearing that on the radio for the last 2 weeks, right?
Exactly.
What does that mean? Here we have our resident food expert, Martha Yount, coming in. Now we're transporting you now down to, I think, Breathitt County.
That's right. Welcome to my kitchen. Let me get set up here. Okay, so I've got two cameras going good enough. Okay, And
That's
I purposely cut off the top of my head, hopefully. So you won't see those gray hairs sticking out as I'm bending over and working. But we are talking about chestnuts today, and I'll try to pay attention and get it whichever one you want to watch. And Renee, if you wanted to pin both of these side by side, that would be helpful. Okay, so anything to do with food is always my favorite part, even though Doug got pretty close on all those Christmas things and just put me more in the spirit. And we have a real tree, and we have a lot of those wood products. You can see I've even got my chestnuts in a wooden bowl there. So today we are talking about roasting chestnuts. And when Renee asked me about this, I thought, oh man, that's going to be fun. And so I've had a lot of fun over the last few weeks doing some experimenting and some learning with this. And so there are 3 simple ways to roast chestnuts. You can do it in the oven, which I'm doing today. You can use your grill, charcoal or gas grill, or you can roast over a fire. And maybe when we get through talking, I had sent Brianna a couple of pictures and one of them did show it over the fire. So the first thing I tried to do was to roast them over a fire. That's the song, chestnuts roasting on an open fire. Well, I found out if you actually put the chestnuts, this is not a chestnut pan. A chestnut pan is, and I don't know if the bottom one camera can see it. This is a popcorn popper, and this one's actually been hanging by my mother's fireplace for over 40 years, never used. And so last time I was there, I said, hey, can I borrow that? And so I did. And you go to YouTube and you learn and you try to figure things out. And so my first attempt was a big failure, and I actually combusted the chestnuts. They caught on fire. So I learned more after that, and with a lot of practice, we found a more successful way to do it. So the chestnuts to begin with are sweet chestnuts and not horse chestnuts, which are not edible and are actually sort of toxic, I think. And you tree expert people, please jump in with corrections on what I'm telling you. I'm from the food point of view. You'll know more about the trees. So sweet chestnuts might be Italian chestnuts or Chinese chestnuts. And the American chestnut is edible. It's just not as common. But a horse chestnut looks similar, but it's not in the same family, I don't believe, and it's not edible. So where do you get chestnuts, since we don't have those huge chestnut trees growing here like we used to before the early 1900s? These actually came from a nut orchard in McKee, Kentucky, which is in Jackson County, not that far from me. And I ordered them, and they sent them to me in the mail. Now, next year I'll plan ahead and I'll go and get them myself at the right time, because shipping wasn't all that cheap. But these are, he didn't know if these were Italian or Chinese chestnuts. He just said they were good and they're the kind you can eat, which is true. They are good and they're the kind you can eat. Lost my train of thought right there. But fresh chestnuts are perishable. So they can stay out at room temperature for best quality just for about a week. And if you want to keep them longer than that, put them in the refrigerator for up to a month. And then if you want to store them longer than that, put them in the freezer and they'll have their best quality for up to 3 months. So when I got these back when chestnuts just came into season, I kept a few out to practice with, and I put the rest in the freezer so I could pull them out as I needed them. And I wanted to show you an example of a bad chestnut, and there weren't any in this whole package from England Orchard. They were all good, but if you're buying them in the store, you want to take a little bit of time. And I have seen them. Ellen told me she bought some at Whole Foods. I saw some at Whole Foods. I've seen them at Kroger before. So you can find them around this time of the year at some grocery stores. And you want to take a few minutes when you're choosing them so that you're not buying, they are not cheap, and you want to make sure that you're getting your money's worth. So when you're choosing them, you want to see a nice, smooth, shiny surface. If you press on it, you don't want it to dent in. that can be a sign of an older shriveled up one. And if you look especially around the little end, if you see any little round holes, that's from worms, from a pest. You don't want those. So every single nut that I received in the mail from our local orchard here in the next county over was in excellent shape. None of them were bad. So then you have to, we have to do a little bit of prep work. And I did have to buy a new toy. I don't know if you can see this very well. This is actually a chestnut knife, which you don't need. But since the handle was also made out of chestnut wood, I thought, man, I've really got to have that. It's also called a foraging knife. It has a little collar that will lock this very short paring knife blade. It's sort of hooked on the end, but that shape is a very traditional chestnut knife. It's also called a foraging knife because you can fold it shut and put it in your pocket. And it's really handy for cutting mushrooms and gathering other wild edibles. So no, this is not American chestnut wood. I don't know what kind it is, but I just thought that was a fun thing. So I tried cutting the X with the knife in a chestnut and just about lost a couple of fingers. And so then I went to YouTube and I found somebody's Italian grandma who was showing how to get your chestnuts ready just with a pair of kitchen shears. And it's faster and it's safer. So I don't know if you can see this very well. I'm just going to put the bottom point of the kitchen scissors down on the flat part of the cutting board and do a snip, turn it around, meet where I started. And then I should be able to pop that open. And I don't know if you can see that from the camera. So the back side is still attached. And this side has that score all the way across. I can pop it open and I'm going to drop it in a bowl of water. I'm going to let these soak for about 2 hours before I cook them. Don't worry, Doug. I've got another batch that I already did. Those 2 little cuts, and you see how that one popped open. I cut that one a little bit too deep and got down into the meat of the chestnut. So ideally, I would just want to get the outer shell, and then if I can pop it open, you can see how that separates apart. You can soak this in wine if you prefer. If you prefer, you can soak it in some salted water. I had never eaten roasted chestnuts before, but my husband, who grew up in a military family, remembers buying them at the train station when he was a little boy living in Korea, and they also lived in Germany. So he was much more familiar with them than me. And the inside is a mealy texture, not a crisp, crunchy texture. So after you get all of them split, and that's so that they don't burst open when they're roasting, soak them in a liquid for 2 hours, and then you can just put them in a plain pan. If you're going to do them in the oven, we'll go ahead and get these going. The last few that I put in didn't get to soak long enough, but the others did. Sorry about that noise. And when we put them in the pan, we'd like for the flat side to be down. And then in the oven, they go in at 425 degrees. I've already got my oven preheated. And we're going to let those cook for 10 minutes at 425. I'm going to be doing some of this after I turn the camera off, but I don't want to forget them. In 10 minutes, we'll turn the heat down to 350 degrees. They split open, so I have some that have already been roasted. See if you can see that one, how it splits open, and then they're pretty easy to peel and get that flesh out of the middle. You do want to peel them while they're warm, while the hull's still a little bit pliable. To me, they almost look like a little brain. And if you open them up, you see that the inside texture is more of a mealy texture. It's not crunchy. And Ellen, you feel free to jump in or put in the chat if you put anything. I know you said you usually just roasted them. I've seen candied chestnuts. I'm going to try that, and also some savory ones that have some rosemary and garlic on that. So I'm going to try some of those. So after they come out of the oven, it doesn't take very long. We'll talk about the fire next. After they come out of the oven, and you want to peel them just as while they're almost a little too hot for your fingers, then I think the very best way to eat them, my husband says, is to just eat them right away without doing anything extra to them. And that's how you can roast chestnuts in the oven. All right, well, if you want to do the traditional way in the fire, I don't remember if I told you this. When they come out of the oven, I put them in a bowl and cover them with a damp towel. That helps make the hull a little more pliable so that you can peel them easier. Helps them cool down just a bit, but it steams them just a little bit too with that damp towel. All right, so if you want to cook them over a fire, I'll tell you all the things that I did wrong so you won't do that. So this is a popcorn popper, a fireplace popcorn popper. It may have intended to just be ornamental, but I like to use things. And so it has two parts, the bottom part and then the top. And you can put your chestnuts after they've been split. I'll put a few in that haven't, just for illustration. So you do the same thing about cutting that little X on them and letting them soak for 2 hours. And then I found out if you put this right on the coals, the chestnuts just catch on fire and burn right up. So you don't want to do that. My most successful attempt with this and the fire was to let the fire burn down completely to coals, and put a metal trivet in there that held this pan a few inches up off of the fire, off of the coals. And then I sat right there in my chair, and every minute I would shake it to move them around. That worked very well. To do them in the grill, you start out just like you're going to in the oven. So I used a foil pan, made sure that I cut the little slit in each one, put them in the pan, and then I had the grill on hot when I first put the pan in. And again, I just left it a few minutes until they start popping open, and then turn the heat down if it's a gas grill, or if it's a charcoal grill, you want to have your charcoal on one side of the grill, and you can then move your pan to the other side so you've got indirect heat, and close the lid so you keep some of that moisture in that way too. And I didn't shake the pan every minute, but about every 5 minutes I would shake the pan so that it wouldn't burn in that one place. So let's see if there's anything else that I've missed about chestnuts, unless somebody has questions that I might know or that Ellen might know, because I think her family likes to do roasted chestnuts too. Ellen, how do you do yours? In the oven or over fire?
Oh, I do mine in the oven. So not as exciting, but they taste good nonetheless.
Do you do the traditional X or the cheater way with the shears?
I'd always done the X, but now I'm gonna have to try with the shears. I've got a big bag of them right now that I'm getting ready to roast. So now I know what I'm going to try tonight. Thank you.
I'm going to have to get with you, Ellen, because I need to find some. I haven't been able to find any around Lexington this year. So I went to the website that she was talking about where she got them, and it says they're sold out. So
you need to buy them when you can, and then remember that they're perishable though. So put them in the refrigerator for up to a month, or put them in the freezer for longer.
And
okay, thanks.
You do have to be careful too, because some of them, they can have the little bugs in them. I don't know what they're called, Ellen. I don't know if you know, but they have these little tiny pests that actually will poke its way out of the chestnut.
Oh, Renee, it sounded like the weevil we saw in the acorns, right?
Pretty much, yeah, it pretty much looks like that. And it's kind of gross when you see them and they're sitting on your counter and then they have poked their way out. But you know, it is what it is, right?
I think you're probably seeing chestnut weevil larvae as well. So weevils abound. Probably not a hazard, but nonetheless gross.
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah,
So
there
now,
you
are they always in the chestnut? No matter, I mean, because when you can open them up and sometimes you don't find any, and I'm
Oh
like,
yeah.
are they
As Martha said, her high quality chestnuts there from England orchards had none. So, you know, it just depends.
Yeah.
Oh, sounds good.
Aw, Martha, that was really cool. Thank you, as always. You do such a great job with your demonstrations and your dual camera action all by yourself. I love it. It was great. Thank you.
Thank you. I always enjoy being part of these and I always learn something from the other speakers.
Us too. So
Us
thank
too.
you.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's really cool.
Alright. Well, thank you folks for joining us. You know, this is our last show of the year because UK closes down for a couple of weeks for us. And so we are not going to have a show next week or the week after, but then join us on the first Wednesday in January. We will be starting back. And we greatly appreciate you all joining us each week. We couldn't do this show without you, and we really appreciate you being on with us.
Yeah, no doubt. Happy holidays to each of you all. We hope you have a very safe and a wonderful time with your families and friends. And come back and join us next year on From the Woods Today.
Yes, just go to fromthewoodstoday.com. If you miss us so much next week, you can go there and binge watch.
Yeah, you can. If you start watching now, you might be able to have them all done by the time we go live. So
I doubt it, but maybe if you watch like every hour.
nonstop, right? Yeah.
Right, nonstop. So
Yeah.
thank you for joining us. We couldn't do this without you. Have a very blessed holiday, and we will see you in the new year. Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone.
From the woods today.